Good morning, my YouTube viewers. It is Palestine here. Welcome to my channel. It's a Saturday morning and I am getting ready to go to Queen's Arms to get my free breakfast. And basically, I don't have a cooker, so I can't cook this type of breakfast that they're going to be giving me, which is going to be a roll with an egg or a sausage in it. So I'm really looking forward to it because I'm very hungry. We didn't have much for dinner last night. The reason why we didn't have much for dinner is because we went to a barbecue, and then me, my boyfriend, and my Sikh friend, we all went to the barbecue. My friend that invited me to the barbecue, she's one of the only people who invites me to things, and this was a barbecue at a supported living house for people who have serious mental illnesses. And so I'm really happy that I got invited to that barbecue because I don't get very many invitations. So my friend had to pay £60 for the food and everything for the barbecue. And she said to me, you only have to give me a $5. So I gave her £5 and my boyfriend gave her £5, and my Sikh friend didn't want to give her any money because he's afraid that her friends would take it from her. So he gave her a big bag of Tetley tea that was worth well over £5. And so I guess she was happy with that because I told my Sikh friend that he had to give her £5. And he didn't give her any £5, but he gave her tea. So I guess that was good. So went to the barbecue. It was really nice. It was nice to be invited, nice to have food to eat. And then so we didn't have much of a dinner last night, even though I didn't eat a lot at the barbecue because I don't need a lot to eat. But nevertheless, nobody else wanted anything significant for dinner. So we just had a really light dinner, a salad and strawberries. And I had a piece of cake because we had to get cake at the Premier shop because I have to spend over £3 to be able to use my debit card. So I was really hungry. In the middle of the night, I was hungry and I had an orange. So because I buy oranges now, I'm not eating grapes anymore. And I decided I'm going to have one orange a day. So I had an orange in the middle of the night because I was hungry. And this morning, my blood was 8.0. So it was less than it was last night. I need to get my blood sugar down desperately because obviously my doctor wants me to get my blood sugar down. And so I'm not having grapes anymore. You're not supposed to have grapes if you're diabetic because grapes have lots of sugar. Orange doesn't taste particularly sugary and it has a lot of fiber in it. So I guess it's not as bad for you as grapes, and orange has vitamins in it too. So that's what I've been having. And so I'm trying so hard to lose weight. But what I wanted to talk to you about this morning is the fact that I was speaking to my boyfriend about some things, and I told my boyfriend that I can't trust people anymore. And that's the truth. I can't trust people anymore. And that's one of the reasons why I live where I live. I live on my own. I know that if my boyfriend and I were living together, we might be able to live more cheaply. But the situation that you have at the moment is because my boyfriend is on universal credit. What the government would do would be they would make me pay all the bills until my money was exhausted. And it's not going to take that long for it to be exhausted, until my money was exhausted. And then when my money was exhausted, then the government would step in and help. So that's why my boyfriend and I live separately, because he is on Universal Credit, and Universal Credit pays his rent, but the government doesn't pay my rent. I have to pay my own rent out of my savings. And so I get a little bit of assistance from the government, because the UK government is telling me that I'm mentally ill, and the rest of the money I have to come up with myself. So if you watch my previous videos will tell you that I have to pay around less than £900 a month just to keep a roof over my head. And that is not including food, clothes, medication, my subscription to MS Office, emergencies like a new bed frame, a new rice cooker. My rice cooker broke and I had to get a new rice cooker yesterday, but I was able to get one for £16 at Argos. A new air fryer. That next week I'm gonna have to get a new air fryer. And then I promised my seat friend and my boyfriend some things that I was gonna get them for Christmas. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and get them as I get my ESA. But just to make sure that I get it to them, and I'll say, well, I'm giving this to you early. It's your Christmas present early, and you're not getting anything from me for Christmas or your birthday because it's an early Christmas present. But yeah, so I have to spend a lot of money just to stay alive, and I don't get any assistance from anybody. I mean, my mother offered to send me money one time, but it wouldn't have been very much, and she wouldn't know how to do it. And then my mother's friend wanted me to send me a gift card, but the gift card, the stores in the UK are different from the stores in the US, and so I said, well, don't worry about it. So I'm just here all on my own, struggling, and I've got my boyfriend, and I spend a lot of money on food because I buy food for myself and my boyfriend, and then now my sick friend, he's coming over every day for dinner, you know. So I'm spending lots of money. I'm not able to save any money. I'm just on the breadline, you know. But I want to go back to the reason why I can't trust anybody anymore. And so I live where I live for trust. And one of the things that my Sikh friend says, he wants me to live with him when his wife dies, and I haven't committed myself to that. And my boyfriend gets really upset because he said that he doesn't get along with my Sikh friend very well, and he gets on his nerves and everything like that. And I just told my boyfriend, and I said to him, and this is the truth, I said to him, I've had problems with accommodation, and I've been homeless before, and I'm not going to put myself in a position to where I've been homeless. And yesterday, my Sikh friend and I went to Argos to get the rice cooker, because my rice cooker broke, so I had to get a new one. And my boyfriend, my Sikh friend, was asking me some questions, and he was just asking me some hypothetical questions, and he was saying, would you like it to live in those houses over there? And I just said, well, I can't afford it. He said, well, just don't think about whether you can afford it or not. Just tell me whether you'd like to live there. And I told him, I said, well, I'd have to go in and see it first, you know. And then so he did ask me another time. He said, would you like to live in my house? And I was just honest with him. This was the first time I've been honest with him. And I said to him, I said, well, I've been homeless before, and I don't want to put myself in a position where I would be made homeless. And he said, I didn't know you were homeless. Why didn't you tell me? And I just said, well, nobody wants to hear bad news. Nobody. I said, nobody wants to hear bad news. I said, I don't want to talk about bad news, and nobody wants to hear bad news, so I don't talk about it. So I was honest with my Sikh friend yesterday. He put me on the spot, and I was honest with him. And I said, well, I've been homeless before. I don't want to be in a position where I'm going to be homeless again. And again, that goes with trust, because I can't trust people anymore. Which I'm not going to, but if I moved in with him, then there would always be that risk that he would get tired of me and want me to move out. And then where would I be? And so what I want to do is I want to explain to you some reasons why I can't trust people anymore. So the first person that I think betrayed my trust was my mother. I mean, aside from the fact that she was an unfit mother, and even her own family knew she was an unfit mother, but they said nothing while we were children growing up and let us live in that environment. When I was 16, she made me homeless. And I'm not going to go into detail about all the things that she did, because I just want to talk about trust. I didn't want to talk about the things that she did to me, but it wasn't very nice. And so she made me homeless when I was 16. I basically had to leave the home for my own safety. And she probably should have been reported to the police, but it's highly unlikely that the police would have done anything. And then, so I was living with my grandmother. I didn't like that. And then so when I was 17, I left, or 16 really, I left my grandmother's house. And I've been on my own ever since. And so I've had really horrendous living situations that I'm not really going to go into detail too much in this video, because this video is about trust. And then so I was living as best I could, just trying to stay alive. And then I was living, when I was 18, I joined the military. So I was afforded accommodation in the military. But I met a lot of people who weren't very nice. My two husbands, namely. So my first husband got out in the military and let me support him. And I was exhausted from working at work all day long and then working at home, while he was sitting at home watching TV, reading books, just living a life of leisure. And I was exhausted. And then so that marriage broke up, and then I married my second husband. And I wanted to get married because I wanted to have a family. I wanted to get my family back. So I thought if I got married, then I would have a stable life. And then my ex-husband, my now second ex-husband, turned out to be living a secret life that I didn't know anything about. This secret life turned out to be involving autosexuality, pornography. I don't know if they do it anymore, but at that time, the internet wasn't as popular as it is now, and not everybody had the internet. So you would phone somebody, and they would talk dirty to you on the phone, and you would have your autosexual experience, and you had to pay for that. So that cost a lot of money, and he was doing that pretty much every day. And then he was having his autosexual experience every day for hours a day, looking at pornography. And he also advertised in magazines, because at that time they had magazines, which I don't know if they have those anymore. I think everything's done over the internet now. And as far as I know, he actually went and met women that he met in these magazines and had a bit of fun with them. And all this time, I was working, trying to earn a living. And and I'm the last to know. I was the last to know. I didn't know anything about this. I mean, the sexual stuff, I suspected it because I found the magazines at home. I found an A4 pad with names written down. So the sexual stuff, I knew the sexual stuff. But the autosexuality, I didn't know anything about that. The exhibitionism, I didn't know anything about that until the police came and picked him up. So basically, it wasn't enough for him to carry out his autosexuality at home, have phone these women and be autosexual, and use pornography and be autosexual, and contact women from these magazines and have fun with them. He had to actually take that out of his private life, and he went into his car and he was doing things in his car, driving around all over southern UK, and people reported him to the police. And so when he got reported to the police, I mean, he was a horrible person, and he didn't take responsibility for what he did. He said that it was because he was in a job that he hated and a bad marriage. So he blamed me. Yeah, I was in a bad marriage too, but I didn't go around doing things like that. So he blamed me, told the police it was my fault. And so he got a caution, because they said that if they charged him, then it would be all over the news and his life would be over. And so I didn't handle it very well. I think now I'd be a little bit more discerning about the type of men I went out with, but I didn't handle it very well. I had to work in a functioning breakdown because I couldn't quit my job. I had to keep working. And then he moved to London, obviously, because I knew his business. So he moved to London and he got an apartment in London, and who knows what he was doing in London. And then the marriage was over. He wanted me out of the house. I didn't have anywhere to go. And I said, well, I'm not leaving, and you can't make me leave. Because a man can't force his wife out of the house, because I went to the Citizens Advice Bureau and got advice. And they said, don't leave that house. Because if I had left the house even to go on a holiday or something, he didn't have to let me back in. So that was probably the third main betrayal in my life. And then ever since I left my husband, I've had problems with accommodation. And I think I've talked about some of these problems with accommodation. Well, I know I've talked about some of these problems with accommodation that in my previous videos, like that one guy in Basingstoke who went into my room in the middle of the night. That was, if you want to know what happened there, you can look at my video about Giselle Pelicott, because I've talked about 2 instances with that video with the Giselle Pelicott case. And then basically, so I had problems with accommodation, and then so I met my Scottish ex-boyfriend, and we were living together, but my Scottish ex-boyfriend didn't support me with my family business. I had some family problems, and he didn't support me, and because of these family problems, it caused problems in my relationship with him. And I just wasn't really happy with him, and he wasn't happy with me, and he would be nasty to me, and not abusive like my 2 ex-husbands were, but he certainly wasn't nasty to me. I'm still friends with him on Facebook, but I don't consider that we're friends anymore. I mean, I would have liked to have stayed friends with him. I would have liked to have stayed on good terms with him, but he didn't want to. He's with somebody else now, and he's moved to Scotland, and I guess he took her to Scotland with him. I don't know. And he doesn't discuss his personal business with me. He sees what I do on Facebook, but he never replies or anything. And then I work on Foster Wheeler. So we've got my mother, my 2 ex-husbands, and now we've got Foster Wheeler. When I started working at Foster Wheeler, I thought that I was going to work there until I retired. That's what I thought. I thought I would work there until I retired. But Foster Wheeler was just using me, and when I was in my 50s, they decided I was old, and so they forced me out of the company in a very nasty way. And I am going to be making videos about some of the things that they did. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the things that Foster Wheeler did to me. And the reason why is because I don't want somebody to watch my video and, one, decide that they're going to do it to me again, or two, get some ideas on how they can do it to other people. And so I will just talk about, in real general terms, what Foster Wheeler did to me, but I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty, because I don't want anyone to do it to me again, and I don't want them to do it to somebody else again. So that's why I'm not saying all the things they did, just not going into detail. And I got harassed out of my job at Foster Wheeler, and then when I was harassed out of my job, I was worried about being harassed out of my home. Well, the simple fact of the matter is that I live in a housing cooperative. But I was worried, and one of the things that the people at Foster Wheeler did was this one woman, because it was a gang stalking ring, and so this one woman, she was telling me that I should move closer to town. So basically, even the gang stalking ring in Foster Wheeler was trying to get me out of this flat. So this one girl, she was like a secretary to a director, secretary to a director, and she was telling me that maybe, sticking her nose in my business, like where I live is not any of her business. I never ask other people, make comments to other people about their living arrangements. And where I live is not any of her business. And I live really close to the center of town. It's like a 20-minute walk, So it's none of her business where I live. And she approached me in the hallway and started suggesting to me that maybe I should move into town. Well, number one, it's going to be more expensive. And number two, it was none of her business. And number three, I didn't want to move. And I do believe, in hindsight, I probably will be making videos about individual people, although I can't name them. But I'll make videos about individual people that were part of Foster Wheeler's gang stalking ring. And she was telling me, oh, you need to move into town. I move into the town center. I didn't even know where she lived. I didn't know anything about her personal life. What was she doing commenting on my living arrangements? But that's just the sort of thing they did. They wanted me to get me out of this apartment so I could move into a privately rented accommodation and get evicted and made homeless. Because that's the nature of gang stalking. The nature of gang stalking is they want you ultimately not to be alive anymore. And they're not going to do it, because if they do it, then there might be a police investigation. Even though the police are useless, the police might decide to do something, and there might be a police investigation, and they might find out that they did it. So they're not going to do it. So what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to get you to do it for them. And so they want to get you to lose your job, lose your home, be institutionalized, like put into a mental hospital or a prison. They want you to lose all your credibility. And so when you go to the authorities and tell the authorities that you're being gang stalked, they just tell you that you're mentally ill and you get institutionalized, and you lose all your credibility. Once you have a label of a mental illness, you lose all your credibility. And so I'm not leaving this place, not until I have to. And then when I do leave this place, it's probably going to be a care home or something like that. But that's just the length of depravity that Foster Wheeler was going to go to. They were trying to get me out of my flat into a privately rented accommodation, and then they were going to get me evicted, so I was going to be homeless. That is just how depraved people at Foster Wheeler were. So I'm so glad that company has gone down the tubes. So glad it's not a company anymore. And then, but the thing is after I left Foster Wheeler, I thought that so now we've got my mom, my two husbands, Foster Wheeler, we've got four groups. And then I thought that the harassment would stop, but the harassment still didn't stop. And the reason why is because Foster Wheeler was still a business. And so I was still being harassed, and they had roped other people in to help them with the stalking. And I'm going to be making videos about this, about what they did and who they did it with. But I can only do it on the weekends because I need to have time to do it. I need to have time. And I need to be able to think about what I'm going to say. And then so it carried on. The gang stalking still carried on. Then it extended to the people where I live. So Foster Wheeler or somebody had roped the people where I live in, and since they have my signature, I'm part of a housing cooperative, they could easily have taken a policy out on me in addition to the one that Foster Wheeler had on me. And since I'm the victim, I can't tell you exactly what they did because they're not going to tell me exactly what they did. The only thing that I can tell you is that one of the perpetrators saw me on the street and she apologized for her behavior. Well, it was too little too late. I'd already been sectioned twice. I'd already been given a label of a mental illness and lost all my credibility, forced to take drugs. So it was just too little too late. So the perpetrators where I live, I'm civil to them. I'm never going to be their friends. I talk to them as little as possible. And then I just carry on with my business. I know at one point my health is going to be so bad where I won't be able to live here anymore. And I'll have to go into some kind of sheltered accommodation or something like that. But these people did a lot of things to me as well. And I'm not going to say everything they did because I don't want to give anybody ideas to do it to me again or to do it to other people. But they did go into my apartment, and I did actually make videos about things that they did. If you want to know some of the things that they did, you can look at my videos that I made on the Giselle Pellicott case. And they vandalized the inside and the outside of my apartment. And my boyfriend witnessed a lot of it. So my boyfriend knows what they did. But the Prospect Hospital, the mental hospital, was saying that not only was I mentally ill, my boyfriend was mentally ill too for supporting me. So he's lucky he didn't get sectioned. So now we've got 5 groups of people. My mom, my 2 husbands, Foster Wheeler, people where I live. And there's other people as well, like charities. When I was being gang stalked out of my job and trying to get me out of my home, I was volunteering for these charities. And I think the charities had something to do with it. So I don't trust charities anymore. I don't want to do any more charity work. If I do charity work, I do it on my own. I don't do it for an organization. I do it on my own because I help a lot of people who can't use computers, can't read, can't write. I help them. I read documents for them. I help them with the computers and things like that. So if I'm going to do charity work, I'm going to do it on my own. I'm not going to do it through an organization. And then now my Sikh friend says when his wife dies, he wants me to live with him, and I'm not going to do that. And I told him yesterday, I came clean to him yesterday, and I said I've been made homeless before. I've had a lot of problems with accommodation, and I'm not going to put myself in a position where I'm going to be homeless again. So I let him know that yesterday, so he knows. And it's because I don't trust people that I just pretty much keep my thoughts to myself, except for you, YouTube viewers. And I'm not going to put myself in a position where I'm going to be homeless. I'm not going to put myself in a position where I'm going to be jobless. And the trust is all gone. I can't trust people anymore. So I've talked enough about trust. I've told you about these 5 entities that have caused me not to trust anymore. And it's also charities and churches. Also, you need to be careful with charities, because when you're volunteering for a charity, that it's the same as a paid employee. So they can take insurance policies out on you. And then a church is just a charity. And I was doing work for the church as well. And so you do need to be really careful. And then this woman said when I was having relationship difficulties, this woman told me not to put my personal business on Facebook. Yeah, they don't want you putting your personal business on Facebook. They don't want you saying how awful your life is. Because if something happens to you, one of the first things the police are going to do is look at your Facebook account. So this woman told me not to put my personal business on Facebook. So they wanted me to be putting how great everything is so they could come back later and do something to me. And then the police wouldn't know anything about it. But it's my Facebook account. I'm going to put my personal business on Facebook if I want to. So I think I've talked long enough about trust and why I can't trust people anymore. And I'm really hungry now. So I've got to go take the bus to get my free breakfast. So thank you so much for watching my video. If you like my video, please like and subscribe. And thank you. It means a lot to me that you take an interest in my very pathetic life.